Welcome to the Reconnection Club podcast, the show that helps parents heal troubled relationships with their adult sons and daughters. I'm your host, psychotherapist Tina Gilbertson. Each week, I'll offer you compassion, clarity, and personal development tips designed to help you reconnect, not only with your child, but with yourself. Now let's get started. As the parent of an estranged adult child, one of the most useful steps that you can take is to try to embody the wise advice from Stephen R. Covey. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Stephen Covey called this the single most important principle in relationships. That's why he made it habit 5 in his pretty popular book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Seek first to understand was not an original idea belonging to Stephen Covey, but he certainly made it popular, at least in theory. Seeking first to understand may be a simple concept, but it's very, very hard to practice, because it means that every time you talk with other people, you listen intently to their point of view. Your whole goal in the conversation is to try to understand their perspective. And you imagine what the world looks like to them. Now, most of us, myself definitely included, do not listen like this under normal circumstances. We tend to listen with a filter on, a filter that I'll call the me filter. While others are talking, we're thinking, what about me? What's my view of this subject? What are my memories, beliefs, or values around this topic? What can I contribute to this conversation based on my experience? Unfortunately, this process we go through as we look like we're listening usually takes up so much mental energy that we don't really totally absorb the speaker's perspective. And when you add to this me filter our human tendency to defend ourselves against any perceived attack, well, then you have a recipe for a bad outcome anytime someone criticizes us or expresses disappointment or anger toward us, or cuts us off entirely. When an adult child goes intentionally silent, or makes accusations, whether scathing or mild or somewhere in between, most parents, who are human beings after all, can't help but succumb to these two temptations. Number one, they put those accusations through the me filter, like, that's not how I remember it. And two, they feel pulled automatically into a defensive posture. Defensiveness is a separate issue that I talked about quite a bit in episode number 39, which was about low self-esteem, and I gave you some ideas about how to address that particular problem in that episode. But regardless of the state of your self-esteem, it may be very good. Letting go of defensiveness can still be pretty tough. It usually takes a conscious decision to let down one's defenses. But the me filter can be gradually controlled by keeping these words in mind. Seek first to understand. Since one of the most common complaints of estranged adult children is that their parents are clueless, seeking to understand your child before expecting her to understand you is a skill worth developing. Putting another person's experience first and foremost is so unnatural and difficult that it takes lots of practice and an intention to have any hope of making it easier. But it is a highly effective strategy for connection if you can swing it. Practicing understanding others first may never make perfect, but practice will definitely make better. And I don't know anything else that will. Now, all of us need and deserve a certain amount of visibility, so make sure that someone is seeking to understand you at least some of the time. You'll need that visibility while you practice understanding everyone around you. And of course, you should always try to understand yourself because you need at least one person in the world who tries in good faith to do that. Anyway, as I said, you won't get great at this overnight, so I wouldn't wait until your child becomes available to do this with. And I say that because I can hear you asking, what if I'm not in contact with my child? How am I supposed to do this? Well, you may not be able to practice with your child right away, but I think that's okay because you can still develop. You can take the time to develop this important skill, even if he isn't around. It's a great use of your time, actually. The people you practice on don't have to be family members, and it even might be easier to practice with people outside of your family, especially at first. So here's how you can try to do this. Here's what it might look like. You listen to someone talk for a while, and then break in if necessary and say, well, let me see if I understand you here. And then try to put in your own words what you heard them say. And if you get really good at holding that basic intention, if that's easy for you, you can bump it up a level. You can take guesses as to how the speaker feels about what she's saying. Or just ask her about her feelings if it's not clear. Don't worry if you don't completely understand what someone's trying to say right away. Really trying sincerely to understand someone is a valuable gift all by itself, really. I mean, even if you get it completely wrong, you'll probably be the only person they talk to that day who says to them, let me see if I understand you here. Just making that attempt is going above and beyond what happens in most conversations. I encourage you to try seeking first to understand someone at least once every single day. Or you can practice just on weekdays or only on weekends, whatever works for you. Just remember that perfection is not the goal. Nobody can do this perfectly, especially in our most important relationships. We've just got so much invested in what our loved ones think and say and do. It's really tough to take that me filter off and just listen. But I promise you that any efforts you make in this direction will be better than staying hypnotized by that me filter. Most of us can grow from the effort of seeking first to understand others before we seek to be understood. But especially for parents with estranged adult children, this habit could become the most useful tool in your reconnection toolkit. Not least because it will put you in your bigger self, the self who's calm and centered and generous. And that's a good place to be when you're trying to repair a troubled relationship. It's a powerful place. Get as much practice, starting today as you can, seeking first to understand others, then to be understood. That way, when the opportunity does arise with your child, you can respond to her much more successfully, and possibly even surprise the heck out of her in a very good way. Until next time, remember that you are a loving, lovable, and still growing human being. So please, take good care of yourself. Bye for now. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Reconnection Club podcast, I invite you to check out reconnectionclub.com. The Reconnection Club is for parents at any stage of estrangement from their adult, child, or children. So whether you've just realized there's trouble between you, you've been living with estrangement for years, or you're newly reconciled but still walking on eggshells, the Reconnection Club is your essential resource for information, support, and continued personal growth. With our courses and workshops, expert interviews, monthly Q&A calls, and a friendly, active community, the Reconnection Club is a wonderful place to be for anyone suffering the pain of estrangement from an adult, child, or children. So check it out at reconnectionclub.com.